Come to the general debate on Black History Month. I call the Minister to move. Minister Seema Malhotra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm honoured to have the opportunity to open this debate on Black History Month, which for the second year is a debate held in government time. It is a chance to honour those who came before us, to celebrate their lives and their courage, and to recognise today the huge contribution that our Black communities make in Britain today. Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend, the member for Erith and Thamesmead, in her powerful opening speech for this debate last year, made the very clear argument that Black history is British history. She said, "The lives of Black Britons are the building blocks of our nation, from the Roman occupation to the Windrush generation, because history is never static, but a story constantly being told and retold over again, and because the voices of Black Britons have so often been marginalised and dismissed, ignored and overlooked." She was right, Madam Deputy Speaker, and generation after generation, Black Britons have been present on the front line of efforts to break down barriers, even when set against persistent and sometimes hostile opposition. Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the debate that will happen today, we will be hearing of contributions and excellence of those from minority ethnic communities, in civil society, in sport, in politics, in armed forces, in arts, in business, and much more, because indeed, this country's heritage of Black excellence is long and proud. Black History Month is a reminder of the legacies of those whose talent and fortitude took them forward, but also took this great country forward, often in deeply challenging circumstances. From Ignatius Sancho, Ottobah Cugoano, and Olaudah Equiano in the 18th century, to Claudia Jones, Trevor Carter and Olive Morris in the 20th century, all of them drivers of change. And Black changemakers we see today, from Idris Elba and Naomi Campbell on the world's great stages, to my right honourable friend, the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, who's in her place today, and Baroness Lawrence of Clarendon in Parliament, who I'm sure the whole House will want to join in wishing her a very happy birthday tomorrow. All are icons, visionaries and change makers of our time. And we believe and we demand that this is a country where everyone should be able to get on in life, regardless of their race. And whilst from fighting injustice has come progress, it has not been without pain and sacrifice. And let me say a few words about the context in which we find ourselves today. We see the growth of right-wing populism in Europe and the United States, and it is for progressives to defend the values that we hold of decency, of tolerance and respect. We recognise the way people are feeling today and the impact of the rise of racism, and together we send a message that we will fight this once again. People of colour across the country have told me about fearing for themselves or their families and for their futures. All of us together are coming together as a nation in a coalition that unites rather than divides, and to do so in Parliament today is so crucial. A senior businessman contributing millions to our economy told me recently about going out in Buckinghamshire for a pub lunch and being told to go home. He was home. We thought these days had gone, but we are reminded that the progress we have made in laws, in culture and values must be defended, and that today we must consciously make the choices that will build the Britain of tomorrow. It is why it is even more important for us to remember and continue to tell the stories of those who have come before us and to learn from the past. But I was very pleased this week, Madam Deputy Speaker, to be able to visit Bristol and the historic Emshed Museum. The story of this one city, told through marvellous displays brought to life, from the Bristol Bus Boycott, the Colston statue, and the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans. These powerful exhibitions provide historical context and today's interpretation on Bristol's role in movements for race equality and social justice. I met community leaders and got a real sense of the lived experiences, challenges, and heard views from the ground up on how we must drive real change going forward. And I was grateful also to the conversations with my honourable friend, Baron Rees of Easton, in the other place. Yesterday at Emshed in Bristol, I had the privilege of meeting the Bristol Bus Boycott elders, including Guy Reid-Bailey, and to hear directly from them about the story of the Bristol Bus Boycott, which helped result in the Race Relations Act 1965 under a Labour government. Guy, who I met, was 17 years old when he was refused a job as a bus driver because of his colour. He told his youth worker, Paul Stevenson. At that time, that was legal. And of course, Paul was furious, and in vain he spoke to the bus company, who refused to change their mind. So with the help of Roy Hackett, Audley Evans, Owen Henry and Prince Brown, they called for a boycott, because if their labour wasn't good enough for them, nor was their money. 2 days later, on April the 29th, the Bristol Bus Boycott began. Together, blacks and Asians marched peacefully with purpose, shoulder to shoulder, in solidarity with students from Bristol University and sympathetic Bristolians. They were joined by their local MP, Tony Benn, and even Parliament's very first black life peer, Sir Leary Constantine, loaned his support. And of course, he too had infamously suffered from the colour bar himself some years earlier. After 4 months of marching with dignity for equality, on August the 28th, 1963, the bus company caved in and agreed to employ people of all colours. This victory for equality happened on the same day that Martin Luther King gave his iconic and immortal I Have a Dream speech during the March on Freedom in Washington, D.C. And indeed, it was 3 weeks later, on September the 17th, that Ragbir Singh, a Sikh, became Bristol's first bus driver of colour. And this context of that year is also personal, because it was in 1963 that a young Sushil Kumar Malhotra made his way to the United Kingdom by ship from India to start work as an engineer in London. And such was the environment in which my father took his first steps in the United Kingdom. His journey, like the journey of many that I met yesterday, a journey of courage in navigating the United Kingdom at that time without race laws, to set up a life and dream and hope for a better future for his family. In Bristol yesterday, local community artist and activist Jules Davis recounted the story of the impact of the Bristol Bus Boycott and subsequent campaigning against the colour bar by Paul Stevenson, who passed away last year. His campaigning caught the attention of future Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson, who contacted Paul and promised to bring in a Race Relations Act if elected. Harold Wilson kept his promise, and Labour introduced the Race Relations Act in 1965, the UK's first ever anti-racist law. It was strengthened in 1968, 76 and in 2000, before being superseded by the Equality Act of 2010. This year, we proudly mark the 60th anniversary of the Race Relations Act. And our theme for this Black History Month is Legacies with Action, understanding 60 years of change and challenge. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am also proud that we are building on the foundations from the past to deliver a legislative programme to address many of the inequalities that persist in our society. We are committed to introducing mandatory ethnicity and disability pay gap reporting for large employers. Our public consultation on ethnicity and disability pay gap reporting closed in June, and we are considering the responses in order to inform our next steps on developing the legislation. These measures will be taken forward in the upcoming Equality, Race and Disability Bill, which we have committed to publishing in draft within this parliamentary session. And we will be working closely with businesses on developing and implementing this commitment to ensure that reporting is beneficial and helps to identify tangible actions. I will give way.
I appreciate that the draft is going to be published this session. When she's more information on the timelines for this, whether it will be before Christmas, for example, or likely after Christmas, would she be willing to update us with the timelines so that we can get ready for scrutinising that and can assist in bringing it forward, which we very much support the work she's doing there.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her contribution, and indeed she and I have sat on many a committee in the past scrutinising legislation, and I understand the wish to be able to say more clearly. There are clearly some stages still to go through in terms of addressing and making sure that we consider fully the responses to the consultation, and indeed then working with the Leader of the House on when we can bring forward that draft legislation. But I will endeavour to keep the House updated on progress. And indeed, also, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that claimants also currently face significant barriers when bringing pay discrimination claims on the grounds of ethnicity or disability. That's why we have also committed to making the right to equal pay effective for ethnic minorities and disabled people. I share a quote from Bristol, from the Rebel Curators Project, that I read yesterday, that we share a common history, but yours is quite different, you see. So when I talk about liberty, it is through my eyes that it must be. And if we have to rebuild, then I think first you should ask me. So this Black History Month, we mark not only the stories of individual achievement, but the story of a nation, because Black history is British history. Parliament must foster that collective national spirit and be a place that reflects the richness of modern Britain and drives the work of reconciliation through inclusion, representation and opportunity. Our strength is in our unity of purpose. When every community can see themselves in the national story, when they know that national purpose cares for them, and every young person knows that there is a space for their firsts too, then we will be truly the country that we claim to be. Thank you.
Thank you. On listening to the Minister, if the House would let me indulge, I was thinking about my own parents' story, especially my mother, Frazon Begum, who would have carried me into this country, and who would have thought that I would make history sitting here in the Speaker's head. But it is my mother's story that is far more relevant, and my mother is called Frazon Begum.